Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the Travelers Championship preview show. First off, thank you for stopping by. I'm going to go over all the course breakdown you need. How do you win here? We're going to go over past winners. We're going to go over a bunch of models and analysis, everything you need to start get your brain spinning on who you want to look at to select and pick for your DFS lineups and possibly just outright bet. And I'm also going to just briefly touch upon the U.S. Open. We'll just do a quick talk about that. And with that said, let's move on. Okay. So, of course, congrats to Jon Rahm. Awesome that he won, especially what happened at the Memorial. You know, made those two amazing putts on 17, 18. And then really the rest of the guys that were chasing him just fell apart. Everybody had that at least one blow-up hole where they doubled, tripled on the back. You got Bryson DeChambeau, of course, on 17. He put a snowman up. You had Rory, who had a bad lie in the bunker and was all over the place. Colin Morikawa, who also struggled. Just multiple guys. And then you even had Louis Oosthuizen, who I had an outright bet on. Lucky I cashed it early on Sunday. But ultimately, you know, his drive just went a little left on 17 and ultimately kind of diffused him. So, you know, usually I go into a bunch of stroke gain analysis that was not available the way that I like to format it. So as you notice, if you were looking at the PGA app, you weren't getting that shot link information. Now, if you go to datagolf.com, you can do a bunch of analysis to break that down. Of course, we want to talk real quickly about the guys that I picked. Of course, I picked Rahm. Everybody did. Everybody was on him. Everything told you to pick Rahm. Usually when that happens, it goes kind of sideways and somebody like Russ Henley wins. But that did not happen this time. So the outright, you know, guy that everybody, even Vegas, had, I did not have him bet because it's just not worth the odds to me to put that kind of money on. I had Louis Oosthuizen, as I mentioned. Also had a few other guys. I had Matthew Wolff, as I mentioned, at 200 to 1. It was good to see Matthew come back. I kind of, you know, out of all probably my picks, that was probably my favorite, just because nobody within the industry, from an analysis perspective or, you know, on a golf, not one person ever mentioned the two words Matthew Wolff. You heard it here from Golf Guru. And, you know, I was glad that he did well. He kind of what I was expecting. 2 months off, cleared the mind, kind of just went out with a whole new attitude. We kind of heard that some mental things he was dealing with. I talked about this previously, knowing, you know, during the pandemic, he was lonely, finally bought a house back by Oklahoma, where he went to college. Yeah. And in short, I think you know, is kind of looking at the game in a little different light, not putting so much pressure on themselves. The guys that killed me, and hopefully did not kill you guys, but Tony Finau, I don't think the guy had a birdie in his 36 holes. You had Victor Hovland, right, get hurt supposedly in practice or warm up. He was already shooting, I don't know, 5-6 over after day one, but got some sand in the eye. Hopefully he's fine. You had Max Homa, who typically does well on difficult courses, does well on POA, has done well on the West Coast. And, you know, he came out, I think it was 5 over after the first round. Shot 3 under to start. I thought, hey, here we go. Max Homa's going to get back in the ball game. And then, of course, fell apart. And then the last thing I'll say about the U.S. Open, I'd like to get your guys' feedback. Did anybody struggle with the U.S. Open app? I was so frustrated with that thing. Downloaded it multiple times. It kept crashing. So I couldn't use that to watch. I mean, of course, I probably could have went on usopen.com. And then they had you, of course, moving from Peacock to the Golf Channel to NBC, back to Peacock. I was not happy at all. I mean, you compare it to what you got to see with the Masters, probably even the PGA. I think the U.S. Open did a terrible job from a way that you got to consume and watch the actual Open. And then you had like crazy things going on with Mac Hughes, Russ Henley, Richard Bland, kind of coming out of nowhere. All those guys out of nowhere. You had that Migazzoni, Guido Migazzoli, who I guess has had some success on the European Tour, but never came up on my radar. So it was kind of crazy, but when it all said and done, the cream did rise to the top on Sunday for a brief period. And one guy stayed there, and that was Rahm. So that's it. That's my wrap up. I would love to hear what you guys thought. If you want to put it in the YouTube comments on what you thought about the U.S. Open. Again, I thought it was a really good Sunday. The rest of it, I think, was eh. You know, he had some interesting stories, but nothing great. And then the U.S. Open app just, like I said, I'd love to hear if you guys had the issues I did. Okay, enough about the U.S. Open. Let's go talk about the Okay, so let's talk about the Travelers Championship. Of course, this is the course breakdown. The PGA players are flying all the way from the West Coast to the far East Coast. We've got actually a pretty nice field. I thought this field was going to be disastrous. If I remember correctly, I think we got 5 out of the top 10 and maybe like 20 out of the top 50. So a pretty strong field. Of course, they're heading to Cromwell, Connecticut, and the course is TPC River Highlands. Course opened way back in 1928, and the Travelers Championship's been there for a long time. I think like 70 years. They might have been a couple different names, but they were the main sponsor, at least for like the last 25. Original architect designer was Robert Ross, but the real key thing is we're going to be looking at is the Pete Dye redesign in 1984. It's a par 70, 12 par 4s, 4 par 3s, and only 2 par 5s. You've got just a little over 6,800 yards. Your fairways and greens are bent grass, and then the rough is actually Kentucky bluegrass and fescue. So it can get a little sticky and has been a longer rough. So you do need to try to keep it in the fairway here. Player field is a typical 156 player field where you cut is a T65 and ties. Historical cut line over the past few years, it's been somewhere between 1 under to 3 under. And the winning score has been 17 under on average over the past few years. And then you had a 20 under, I believe that was in 2020 where DJ won. Just some kind of side notes. You had Mackenzie Hughes, who went out and shot a 60 in his round one back in 2020. So again, I always recommend go back and watch some of the round highlights on YouTube. The PGA, just type in PGA Traveler, round one highlights, round two highlights, and you'll get to kind of watch. You had Phil Mickelson, who actually has won here back-to-back back in 2001, 2002. He's the only back-to-back winner and actually was your 36-hole leader back last year. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. You know, from a course defense, we're going back to just an older traditional Pete Dye kind of course, somewhat like Harbor Town, where they play RBC Heritage, or where we just saw the Colonial or the Charles Schwab at Colonial, just to give you kind of a reference. Water does come in play on 5 holes, and I say tree line. It's not like as bad as Harbor Town. There is quite a bit of trees, but it's not like you're in a tight fairway, you know, where you just got to hit irons and hybrids off the tee. There's a bit of sand, and funny enough, plotters and bombers have succeeded here. So it's not one of those courses that, you know, like we just saw, where it seemed like if you had the distance, you had an advantage. Here it's all about hitting fairways and sticking your ball on approach and making your putts, which is pretty typical. Also, just if you look at if you think about like the Bear Trap, the Snake Pit, the Green Mile, we have the Golden Triangle here, holes 15, 16, 17. I kind of laugh for some odd reason when I say the Golden Triangle, but it is where 3 holes are played around water and you have to make some, some shot makers. And so overall, yeah, also Bubba Watson's won here twice. Paul Casey has had a crazy record, never won, but has had like 3 runner-ups, a 5th, a 6th. So everything tells you this is a ball striker, shot maker golf course. Those guys are the ones that do well. Okay. And just to give you a quick understanding and overview, here's the holes that the water comes in play. So off the, number 13, you've got water runs along the fairway. You got water in front of the green. Here's the golden triangle. Boom. For the, this little area here, I think it's a 2 par 3s and a par 4, if I remember correctly. You also got water coming on this par 3 on number 8. And just to give you kind of a visual understanding, again, I recommend you go watch some highlights or past coverage. You can see bunch of sand, elevated fairways, elevated greens, and of course the trees that I was mentioning. We jump into the scorecard. I don't really see a really crazy advantage either way. As I already mentioned, there's 12 par 4s, 4 par 3s, 2 par 5s. The par 5s are very gettable. That's where, you need to probably if you're not making a birdie on those par 5s, you're probably losing ground. The par 4s, I think 7 of them, and I'll talk about this more, is between 450 and 500, but there's some shorter par 4s. You can see this drivable number 2. So pretty gentle handshake to start out. You can see kind of not such a gentle outward. That golden triangle comes into play. And as I mentioned, it's a short par 4, but then you've got this par 3 and then, a decent par 4, we'll say the number 3 handicap hole, number 17. And then to kind of finish out, you got a little bit, I want to call it a longer par 4, but difficult in nature. But this is a course that you're going to have. It's not Shriners, but they're going to have to make some birdies. You're going to need guys. So we're kind of leaving If you think about, we've seen Quail Hollow for Wells Fargo, we had the PGA, we just had the U.S. Open, and so it's been like it's not the typical shoot the 20 under. Well, we're back to a bit of a shootout, and so we're going to need guys that can produce that. And just real quick from past course conditions over the past 2 years, wind is not typically a concern here, where we have had to kind of keep an eye on that. A couple coastal courses that we've been just recently playing. But as I mentioned, the length of the rough has been longer, so they're going to be able to get out of there, and the green speeds are fast. Don't think there's really anything else that sticks out to me. Scoring relative to par, you can see average to easy, hitting fairways, average to easy, as I mentioned, nothing too crazy. And again, there's going to be holes where guys probably take, cutoff lines. There's going to be, also times where you're taking irons and hybrids off. And so this, as I always typically do, this is a kind of a stroke gain analysis ranking that I do. And of course, you're right. You got back in 2017 where Jordan Spieth chipped in to win the Travelers. I believe before the Valero, that was the last tournament he won. But the number one thing that I see is approach and ball striking. Putting is a crucial thing here. You're going to have to make the putts, as it always is. I think good drives is going to show up. That's driving accuracy. So you understand what good drives from a stroke gain is guys that have hit the fairway or maybe the first intermediate rough, but ultimately hit the green on their second approach shot. As I already mentioned, you're going to have guys that gain birdie or better opportunities and convert those birdies. Got to be good around the green, out of the sand. The proximity of the pins that show up, of course, with a shorter course, 125 to 150 and 150 to 175. And par four scoring, I plug it in 450 to 500. There's 7 of those. And par 3 efficiency, you got 4 of them. And then, of course, as I already mentioned, very gettable 2 par 5s. And what's kind of interesting is Jordan Spieth, from what I saw, is not in the field. So he's not coming back here. Maybe just needs a break. But I just thought that was kind of shocking, a place that you've actually won at before. And if you look down here, I did pull up his stroke gain analysis for when he won back in 2017. And what's interesting and what I've kind of noticed is approach is very key. The putting, you gotta definitely game with the putter. But off the tee, there's some mixed results if you really need to gain off the tee or not. And you can see Jordan did it in a way of approach around the green and putting, and it wasn't gaining a whole lot of strokes off the tee. So I threw that in there because also I'm back to where I can show you guys again the past winners. We can look at their stroke gain analysis and how they do it, which then also confirms what I'm looking at. And of course, last year you had Dustin Johnson win. And again, he did not, funny enough, gain off the tee. And what's also interesting is you've got like the Jason Kokrak's, DJs, guys that you think of as bombers who will do well at shorter tracks, more of a strategic kind of how you play the track. And DJ fits one of those. Now, you could also say just amazing golfers. Again, you can put them on any track, and if they have a good, 4 days, they're going to win. And that is true. But it is kind of funny how to see where, Kokrak was one of my picks. That also fell apart at the U.S. Open. And I've gotten to a point where I'm not going to play Kokrak on tough, long, difficult courses, even though from a stroking analysis, it makes sense where he actually does well, like winning the Charles Schwab, which is a, very similar track to this, par 70, less than 7,000 yards, bent greens. That's where I'm going to play Jason Kokrak from now on. He's not going to get put in at the Genesis or Quail or anywhere I see that's a very long, difficult course. Anyways, I digress. Ches Reavie, now a perfect example of a plotter. And so I've kind of highlighted here, again, where you can see approach shows up, all except this 2015 bubble win, where he actually did do it with a bit of the driver and the putter. But ultimately, I think approach and putting is the 2 key stroke gain areas. And then you can see around the green, somewhat important. But off the tee, you just need to hit fairways. And it doesn't matter if you're 340, 350. Can it come in? DeChambeau has had good success here. And I believe he is in the field. So, is he possible? Like I said, it's going to be kind of interesting as I go through the analysis of the plays that I want to play. And then to kind of walk you through my methodology on how I go through this is, when I first kind of take a pass at this, I create a larger model. And then when I get into my picks, I kind of refine it and I pull out a few key things that I'm looking at. So this is just a first pass model. But very applicable, something I'll probably, leverage. And of course, ball striking, approach, putting, good drives, all the things I already mentioned. is what we're looking at. And then you can see this is the weighting below. I'm not going to go through this, but you can see how I weighted them. The first 4 are probably the heaviest. Birdies is also up there, sand saves. And then I'm just looking at recent form here. So this is their past 12 rounds. So that could be the past 3 tournaments. It might be a little different depending if guys miss cuts. And there's no filters, so I'm not filtering out on, type of grass, distance, none of it. It's just over your last 12 rounds under these stroke gain categories, how have you done? And number 1 comes up Patrick Cantlay, Paul Casey, which is interesting. I mentioned what an amazing, past history he's had here. Also, a pretty good showing at the U.S. Open. Abe Answer, not that great of a showing. I don't think he made the cut if I remember off, but he really pops up. And I think this is a better fit for Abraham Answer, just like RBC Heritage. This is kind of the course that he could maybe finally get his first win at. You got Patrick Reed, who had a good Sunday at the U.S. Open, but also was one of my picks and did not do as well as I thought. Aaron Wise been playing, good golf. Burns, I'm kind of starting to get a little out on Burns right now. So, but he pops up, and of course, no shocker, he has played some good recent golf. You got Satoshi Gadire, who's also been popping up, pretty good price tag. Luke Donald has some decent recent form, but in my brain, this is a pretty good, especially under when Luke Donald was the number 1 in the world. No brainer play here. Harris English had a shocking 3rd place finish at the U.S. Open, kind of sneakily came in there. Streelman, great iron player. Scotty Scheffler, pretty good showing. Good to see Griot again. Of course, great fit, but can't putt. But maybe he can this time. Where does he fit on the putting stats? 43rd. You got Brooks showing up here. DeChambeau already mentioned. And Ricky Fowler's back. So there's just some names for you. I'm just on a pure recent form. And then the next thing I want to do is let's just go look purely at the history at TPC River Highlands. How have they done here? And I mentioned DeChambeau, funny enough, comes up number 1 under these stroking categories. Again, you're seeing some, Streelman, DJ, who's actually won here recently. You got Siwoo Kim, who's a Pete Dye specialist. You can never go wrong if you just plug Siwoo Kim in on any Pete Dye course. Of course, the Players, RBC, I think even the American Express, he's, won there recently. You got Patrick Cantlay, of course, kind of, I don't know, up and down. Not the greatest U.S. Open. I was hoping he'd do a little better. Kyle Stanley, been playing some good golf. Answer pops up again. Reeve, past winner. You got the Hoffman, not the greatest. I did not pick him, I don't believe, if I remember correctly. Had a terrible Sunday at the U.S. Open. I know I had him in my finale showdowns and did not do well. Bubba pops up past winner twice. So I don't know if I told you that, but I think, I showed on my past winners. Will Gordon, who this is kind of what turned around Will Gordon's whole career was I don't know if he had it just exempt or if it was what do you call it, a sponsor exemption, but he actually ended up I think a T3 here, which got him status on tour. So this was a huge tournament for him. Russell Henley pops up, who of course had that amazing out of nowhere. That blew my mind because if you guys have been watching me for a while, I was on Russ Henley the whole Florida swing because he is amazing on approach. Really good Bermuda putter. Off the tee is very sporadic, but you can see what happens, when these guys kind of plug things in. Now, of course, he ultimately didn't win, but that he was, a 36-hole leader or tied for the lead was pretty crazy, of course, with Mackenzie Hughes. And then on that whole Pete Dye specialist, anytime we go to a Pete Dye course, if I can, or Jack Nicklaus, I like to let you guys just kind of see all the Pete Dye courses, how these guys done. And this would include even Kiowa. So the Ocean course, of course, was a Pete Dye course. So you remember that. That was recent. RBC, Harbor Town. Of course, you got TPC River Highlands. And so number 1, Paul Casey again. If you just take over their last 12 rounds, so that could be 3 tournaments on Pete Dye courses. I didn't go back further because I like to keep the recent form, kind of keep hitting. Funny enough, you got Tony Finau way at the bottom here. Answer shows up again. Siwoo Kim. Cantlay pops up. You got Reed again. Griot pops up again. Rose, which I did not pick him, but did not have a good U.S. Open. The Hoffman pops up again. And then now this is kind of looking at if you put in some filters, like less than 7,000 yards, a par 70, bent grass, then it's going to pull up, as I already mentioned, the Colonial will fit that. TPC Old White course, where they play the military tribute to the Greenbrier. Just give you some ideas. I think even TPC Harding Park, where they play the PGA, I think pops up. But long story short, these are some comp courses. I'm going to provide tomorrow the actual comp courses I'll use when I bounce my picks up against. That will be in tomorrow's when I do my picks. But funny enough, if you just look at that over again, the last 12 rounds, Harold Varner, Neiman, DeChambeau comes up again. You got DJ pops up again. Answer, Reed. So a lot of the similar names. Will Gordon pops up. Russ Henley again. So again, just give you some different thoughts. And then lastly, I always want to look at who's the best bent putters in this field. That's all I'm looking at. So this is over now. The only difference is whenever I look at putting, I like to look at a little longer history than just 12 rounds. So I pulled 24, but you got to be careful with this, right? Because if you go 50 rounds, then you're going to get the Ricky Fowlers and you're going to get Jason Days and guys that we all know for the last while have not putted well. So that's why I keep it to 24 rounds. And then number one is Brendan Todd. Again, somebody that you would think could do well here. Zach Johnson could do well here. Awesome from like that 100 to 125. I'd say him and, of course, Justin Thomas, when I think of the 100-yard pitching wedge, 125, man, just crazy. Made a lot of money with that club. Tringali, which we don't believe he was not at the U.S. Open. Don't think he qualified. Mackenzie Hughes pops up, of course. I mentioned he shot that 60 first round last year. We got Harris English pops up. Patty Kazire, the guy that I was all over. And hey, guys, I got to look at him, but this could be the one tournament where I could just see not picking him and not betting him, and he had to go out and win. It wouldn't shock me at all. Of course, he did well at Charles Schwab, so someone that we got to keep an eye on. Lanto Griffin, actually had a decent U.S. Open. Kind of had a okay showing for Lanto. Munoz did not make the cut at the U.S. Open. Snedeker could be very live here. Played somewhat decent golf recently. Okay, that just gives you some ideas of guys to think about. And that's it. That's kind of my first get your brain kind of spinning. Everything you'd want to know about the Traveler. So again, if you would do me the honor, if you liked what you're seeing, please click the like, share it with anybody. Subscribe if you've been watching and you're getting value. Please subscribe. Keeps me doing what I'm doing. And last but not least, if I can help you, hit me up on YouTube comments with any kind of questions or anything if I can, I will definitely respond and help. Or you can hit me up at DFS DFS Golf Guru on the Twitter sphere, and I'll also check that. Now, again, I always mention, probably check YouTube comments more than I do Twitter. But if you follow me on Twitter, I do kind of keep an eye, and if I see someone with draws the morning before or whatever, I will throw that out there. So just so you know. All right, best of luck, and to us for the Travelers. I'm excited about this. I usually do really well when it comes to the Travelers, RBC. I don't know what it is, but with the shorter courses, maybe I just have a better feel for the guys that do well there. I don't know, but I've had a lot of success when it gets to these sides. So looking for a prosperous upcoming weekend. All right, guys, take care. Talk to you later.